In a world where trends come and go at the speed of a swipe, something unexpected has taken hold. A voice from the past, long relegated to dusty philosophy shelves, has suddenly erupted into the global consciousness. Friedrich Nietzsche, the 19th century German philosopher known for his provocative ideas, has become the unlikely star of 2025's most heated debates. It all began with a single TikTok video. A user, scrolling through an obscure passage from Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil, stumbled upon a line that seemed to speak directly to our modern condition. Create your own values in a world devoid of meaning. The video went viral overnight, sparking a firestorm of reactions across social media platforms. Suddenly, comment sections were ablaze with passionate discussions about autonomy, morality, and the nature of existence itself. Viewers from all walks of life found themselves grappling with questions they had never considered before. What does it mean to create our own values? How do we navigate a world that seems increasingly chaotic and meaningless? As the debate raged on, something extraordinary happened. Nietzsche's books, once confined to academic circles and niche philosophy enthusiasts, began flying off the shelves. Online retailers reported unprecedented surges in sales for titles like Thus Spoke Zarathustra and The Gay Science. Physical bookstores scrambled to restock their philosophy sections, caught off guard by the sudden demand for century-old texts. The phenomenon wasn't limited to a single country or demographic. From Tokyo to Toronto, Buenos Aires to Berlin, people of all ages and backgrounds were suddenly immersing themselves in Nietzsche's challenging prose book clubs formed overnight, dedicated to unraveling the complexities of his ideas. Coffee shops buzzed with animated discussions about the death of God and the concept of eternal recurrence. As Nietzsche's words spread like wildfire across social media, podcasters and content creators rushed to capitalize on the trend. Overnight, a flood of new shows emerged, with titles like Nietzsche for Beginners and Beyond Good and Evil, a modern guide. These podcasts attempted to break down the philosopher's dense ideas into digestible chunks for a contemporary audience hungry for meaning. Mainstream media outlets couldn't ignore the phenomenon. News segments dedicated precious airtime to analyzing Nietzsche's sudden relevance. Experts were called in to explain how a 19th century thinker could resonate so powerfully with 21st century minds. Headlines like "Why Nietzsche's Warning Has Never Been More Relevant" dominated front pages and news feeds, further fueling the public's fascination. The impact of this philosophical renaissance wasn't confined to the realm of ideas. Wall Street analysts began incorporating Nietzschean concepts into their market forecasts, speculating on how a shift in values might affect consumer behavior and investment trends. Tech companies scrambled to develop apps that promised to help users become who they are, capitalizing on the growing desire for self-actualization. Universities around the world found themselves at the center of heated debates. Lecture halls overflowed as students and faculty engaged in passionate discussions about the implications of Nietzsche's ideas for modern society. Philosophy departments, long accustomed to operating on the fringes of academic life, suddenly found themselves thrust into the spotlight. But as the fervor grew, so did the questions. What exactly was this forgotten idea that had captured the world's attention? And why was it resonating so powerfully now, in 2025? The answer lay in Nietzsche's call for individuals to become who they are. A deceptively simple phrase that carried profound implications. In a world increasingly dominated by algorithms, artificial intelligence, and social media echo chambers, people were feeling a deep-seated need to reclaim their autonomy and authenticity. Nietzsche's idea of self-authoring values struck a chord with those who felt adrift in a sea of conflicting ideologies and prepackaged identities. His rejection of traditional moral frameworks and emphasis on individual creativity offered a tantalizing alternative to the nihilism that many felt creeping into their lives. As the debate raged on, it became clear that Nietzsche's resurgence was more than just a passing trend. It was a symptom of a deeper cultural shift, a collective yearning for meaning and purpose in an increasingly complex and uncertain world. Wellness influencers, always quick to spot a new opportunity, began incorporating Nietzschean concepts into their self-help programs. "Embrace your inner Übermensch" became a popular catchphrase, as life coaches promised to help clients transcend societal limitations and forge their own paths. But not everyone was convinced that this philosophical revival was a positive development. Critics warned of the dangers of misinterpreting Nietzsche's ideas, pointing to historical examples of how his work had been co-opted and distorted for nefarious purposes. They argued that in a world already grappling with rising authoritarianism and social fragmentation, Nietzsche's emphasis on individual will could be a recipe for further chaos. Others saw the trend as a much-needed wake-up call. In an era of increasing automation and artificial intelligence, they argued, Nietzsche's ideas about human creativity and self-determination were more relevant than ever. As machines threatened to take over more aspects of our lives, perhaps it was time to reassert our uniquely human capacity for meaning-making and value creation. The debate spilled over into the political realm, with pundits and politicians invoking Nietzsche to support their various agendas. Some saw his ideas as a justification for radical individualism and the dismantling of social institutions. Others interpreted his work as a call for a new kind of community, one based on shared creativity rather than rigid moral codes. As the world grappled with these weighty questions, a sense of urgency began to permeate the global conversation. If Nietzsche was right, if we truly are responsible for creating our own values in a meaningless universe, what does that mean for our collective future? How do we navigate the delicate balance between individual freedom and social cohesion? The answers to these questions remain elusive, but one thing is clear: Nietzsche's comeback has forced us to confront some of the most fundamental issues of our time. In a world teetering on the brink of ecological disaster, grappling with the implications of artificial intelligence, and facing unprecedented social and political upheaval, his call to become who you are has never felt more urgent or more challenging. As we stand at this crossroads of history, Nietzsche's words echo across time, demanding that we take a hard look at ourselves and the world we've created. The philosopher who declared God is dead now asks us, in the absence of traditional sources of meaning, what will we create to fill the void? The global debate sparked by that single viral quote shows no signs of slowing down. From classrooms to boardrooms, from social media feeds to intimate conversations between friends, people are wrestling with what it means to truly author their own values and identities in the 21st century. As we close this chapter of Nietzsche's unexpected resurgence, we're left with a pressing question that each of us must answer for ourselves. In a world that often seems devoid of meaning, how will you become who you are? In a world where algorithms shape our reality and AI threatens to redefine humanity, an unlikely voice has emerged from the past, igniting a global conversation that sets social media ablaze. The year is 2025, and Friedrich Nietzsche, the 19th century philosopher known for his provocative ideas, has suddenly become the most talked about thinker of our time. It all started with a single line: "Become who you are." These four words, plucked from Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil, have sparked a cultural phenomenon that's sweeping across TikTok, dominating academic debates and even infiltrating corporate boardrooms. But what does it really mean to become who you are in an age of digital personas and shifting identities? As we delve deeper into Nietzsche's challenge, we uncover a truth far more complex and potentially dangerous than the self-help mantras that have flooded our feeds. This isn't about finding your authentic self through meditation apps or personality quizzes. No, Nietzsche's call is far more radical, more demanding, and perhaps more necessary than ever before. In a world where traditional moral frameworks are crumbling, where AI threatens to outpace human capabilities, and where the very notion of truth itself seems up for grabs, Nietzsche's words resonate with a new urgency. He's not offering a path to inner peace or social acceptance. Instead, he's issuing a challenge, one that could reshape our understanding of morality, identity, and what it means to be human in the 21st century. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. To truly grasp the power and the potential peril of Nietzsche's resurgence, we need to unpack what he really meant. And trust me, it's not what you might think. Nietzsche wasn't advocating for some feel-good journey of self-discovery. His vision was far more radical, more demanding. When he wrote Become Who You Are, he was calling for nothing less than a complete reinvention of the self in a world where traditional values no longer held sway. Imagine, if you will, a society where the old moral guideposts, religion, tradition, societal norms have all been swept away. In their place, a vast, empty landscape of possibility and responsibility. This was the world Nietzsche foresaw, and it's eerily similar to the one we find ourselves in today. In this moral vacuum, Nietzsche argued, each individual faces a monumental task: to create their own values, to forge their own path, even if, especially if, it means defying social expectations. It's not about finding your true self, it's about creating it, consciously and courageously. This idea of moral creativity, of self-authorship in the face of existential uncertainty, is what's resonating so powerfully with modern audiences. In a world of deepfakes and digital avatars, where our identities are increasingly fluid and fragmented, Nietzsche's call to become the author of our own lives strikes a chord. Think about it. We're living in an age where AI threatens to make many jobs obsolete, where social media algorithms shape our perceptions, where the very notion of objective truth seems increasingly elusive. In this context, Nietzsche's challenge takes on new urgency. It's not just about personal fulfillment, it's about reclaiming our autonomy in a world that seems increasingly beyond our control. But here's where things get really interesting and potentially dangerous. Nietzsche's idea isn't about conformity or finding your place within existing structures. It's about radical self-creation, about having the courage to define your own values, even if they clash with societal norms. This is why Nietzsche's resurgence is sparking such heated debate. On one hand, his call for self-authorship resonates deeply, with a generation grappling with questions of identity and purpose. Young people, facing an uncertain future and disillusioned with traditional institutions, are finding in Nietzsche a philosophical framework for forging their own path. On the other hand, critics warn of the potential dangers of moral relativism. If everyone is creating their own values, what happens to social cohesion, to shared ethical frameworks? These are the questions being hotly debated in university lecture halls, on social media forums, and even in corporate ethics seminars. But before we dive deeper into this debate, let's pause for a moment. Ask yourself, is becoming who you are an act of liberation or a path to loneliness? The answer, as we'll see, is far from simple. As Nietzsche's ideas spread like wildfire across social media platforms, a fascinating dichotomy has emerged. On one side, we have the Nietzsche brothers, mostly young men who've latched onto the philosopher's more bombastic quotes about power and self-assertion. They fill TikTok with clips of themselves doing push-ups while quoting beyond good and evil, often missing the nuance of Nietzsche's thought. On the other side, we find a more diverse group of thinkers, artists, and activists who see in Nietzsche's call for self-creation a powerful tool for reimagining identity politics and social structures. They're using his ideas to challenge gender norms, rethink economic systems, and push for radical new forms of community. This clash of interpretations has led to some truly surreal moments. Imagine a Wall Street trader quoting Nietzsche to justify aggressive market tactics, only to be countered by an environmental activist using the same philosopher to argue for a complete overhaul of our relationship with nature. But it's not just online debates and academic discussions. Nietzsche's resurgence is having real-world impacts. Tech companies are grappling with the ethical implications of AI development, asking whether machines can ever truly become who they are. Political movements are forming around the idea of radical self-determination, challenging traditional notions of governance. Even the wellness industry, always quick to capitalize on a trend, has gotten in on the action. Nietzschean mindfulness retreats promise to help participants hammer out their own values. In luxurious mountain settings, it would be almost comical if the stakes weren't so high, because make no mistake, there are real dangers lurking in Nietzsche's philosophy if misunderstood or taken to extremes. His emphasis on individual will and the creation of new values can, if divorced from its context, lead to a kind of moral nihilism. In a world already fragmented by filter bubbles and algorithmic echo chambers, do we really need another force pushing us towards isolated, self-referential worldviews? This is the crux of the debate raging in universities, think tanks, and increasingly, in the public sphere. How do we balance the liberating potential of Nietzsche's call for self-creation with the need for shared ethical frameworks and social cohesion? Some argue that Nietzsche's ideas, properly understood, actually point the way towards a new kind of community, one based on mutual recognition of each individual's struggle for self-realization. Others warn that this is a recipe for social disintegration, a path that leads to a war of all against all. As the debate rages on, one thing is clear: Nietzsche's resurgence is forcing us to confront some of the most pressing questions of our time. In an age of AI, climate crisis, and geopolitical upheaval, what does it mean to be human? How do we create meaning and purpose in a world where traditional sources of value are crumbling? These aren't just abstract philosophical questions. They're challenges that each of us must grapple with in our daily lives. And this is where Nietzsche's call becomes deeply personal. Become who you are isn't just a catchy phrase to put on a motivational poster. It's a profound challenge that demands courage, creativity, and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths about ourselves and our world. It means looking critically at the values and beliefs we've inherited, asking ourselves which ones truly serve us and which are holding us back. It means having the courage to forge our own path, even when it goes against societal expectations or the wishes of those close to us. But it also means recognizing the responsibility that comes with this freedom. If we're truly the authors of our own lives, then we're also accountable for the consequences of our choices. In a world facing existential threats like climate change and the potential misuse of AI, can we afford to pursue purely individual paths of self-realization? This is the tension at the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy, and it's why his ideas are resonating so powerfully in 2025. We're living in an age that demands both radical individual creativity and unprecedented global cooperation. Navigating this paradox is perhaps the greatest challenge of our time. As we wrap up this exploration of Nietzsche's unexpected comeback, I want to leave you with a question to ponder. In a world where traditional sources of meaning are crumbling, where technology is reshaping what it means to be human, how will you answer Nietzsche's call? What does it mean for you, personally, to become who you are? The answer won't be easy. It might require facing uncomfortable truths, making difficult choices, and reimagining your place in the world. But in grappling with this question, you'll be joining a global conversation that's shaping the future of human identity and purpose. Nietzsche's challenge echoes across time, more relevant now than ever before. The question is, are you ready to answer it?